Good day everybody, my name is Daniel and I'm back again with another video. Okay, cool. So in today's lesson we're going to be going through IO streams. So these are input output streams. That's what IO stands for. So what basically we're going to be doing is writing and extracting from files. So what I mean by files, I mean actual .txt or .dat format. So it's basically just a normal text file on your computer. You want to write a program whereby your program goes into those files, gets that data, and then can do something else with that data, either process it or maybe put it into another file. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So all right, that's not what I wanted to do. So we have our IDE right here. Okay, so you can just click on file. So this is code blocks, so you can click on file, create new, and create a new project, right, and save everything. And once you're done saving everything, I want you to open your file, what's this, your file, oh gosh, what is this thing called? A file explorer here. So open your files, right, and navigate over to where your project lies, and then go into it. And I want you to create two files, right? You can just click on right click and then go to new, and then click on text document, and then I want you to create a new file. You can just name it whatever, but I'm naming mine file, and I'm pressing enter. So if you do that, it's already going to save it as a .txt. Okay, I also want you to create a new file, which is an output file, right? Well, this is what we're going to use to output some of the contents of our program. So I'm going to say right click, new file, and then I'm going to name it output, right? That's also going to save it as an output.txt. Okay, so please do that, and then go back to your IDE right here, and then we can begin. So first things first, let's include a few things. Okay, so go all the way to the top of your file, hashtag include. I want you to include fstream. Okay, fstream, yes, fstream. I also want you to include cstdlib, right? I'll explain why we're including these. So first things first, for the fstream, what we're going to get from the fstream is an if stream. It's called an input file stream, right? So firstly, go std input file stream, right? if stream. So it stands for input file stream, and we're going to name it input or iStream, like that. And then actually I'm going to name it inStream, not iStream. And then I'm going to say std output file stream, right? And then that I'm going to name it outStream, like that. Okay, so these are our declarations, right? So just might get a little confusing, but just know that this is just the name of the class. This is also the name of the class, and these are just the names of the variables, just like you would whenever you're declaring an integer or anything like that. All right, now what I want to do now is I just wanted to confirm something. Now since we have our input file streams declared, we want to go ahead and actually add contents to our file so that we can use our program to go and extract that information, right? So go over to your project directory again, where you have your file. Remember, in your directory you named you created a file called file. Just double click on it, it'll open up Notepad, or you can use whatever file opener you want, and just populate this file with some information. So I'm just gonna write a normal list, nothing too fancy. I'll say water, I'll say cooking oil, I'll say fish, I'll say, I don't know, juice, I don't know, maybe what else, cool drink or something like that. Doesn't matter, whatever list that you want to add into this file, you can go ahead and do that. You can add as many elements as you want. Save that, Control S, or you can just click on File, Save, right, and then close it. Make sure that you do close it, and then after that come back to your IDE, and then we're going to try and open that file with our program. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying, we're going to start by opening the file. Open the file. Okay, so I'm going to say instream.open, like that. And then when you open the file, you need to give the name of the file inside the parentheses. So I'm going to say our file's name is file.txt. Okay, if you created a .bat file or a .dat file, use the appropriate extension. Ours is a .txt. Now we open it, but when we open it, we want to check if it actually does open, right? And then if it doesn't open, we want to give errors, right? So maybe if the file is not found, we want to give an error to the user, you know, via the console. So what I'll do is that I'm going to say if the instream dot open, no, if the instream dot fail, right? If instream fails, basically this means that if instream fails to open, then do this. So I'm going to say std cout, I'm going to give an error, fail to open file. Okay, and then I'm going to end it with a end line right there. And then what else am I going to do? Inside of this fail, I'm going to want the program to exit, or you know, to exit the program. So what I'll do is that I'll say std std exit, and then I'll pass in a 1 day. So this line basically just tells the compiler that we want to exit the program if we're unable to find this instream. It's actually not the compiler, it's actually the program in runtime. So it tells it to exit, and for you to use this line, you have to have included cstdlib here at the top. Okay, just be mindful of that. That's why we have this here. Now after opening the file, if all goes well, that means that we can now actually start reading the details of the file, right? But before we do that, let's just close the file and then try and run this program to see if it actually works. So to close the file, after opening a file, you need to close it immediately after utilizing that file. So I'm going to say instream.close, like that. So always make sure you close your file after using it, okay? Otherwise you're going to get some problems. I'm going to build and run my program and I don't get anything, okay? So but my program does run, so it means that everything went well. Okay, I'm gonna write a std cout. I'm gonna actually say successfully opened the file, like that. Okay, I'm gonna build that again, and there we go, it says successfully opened the file. So everything went well. Now we want to do something with the file. So underneath opening the file, let's write another comment underneath there, and then we want to actually show items to the cout, right? Show items of the file to the cout. So how can we do that? We can do that with a while loop. Okay, so but for us to do that, we actually need to declare a string so that it can read every line in that file and then output it. We need to store that line inside of a string and then output the string, if that makes sense. So let's just include a string first, string, and strings tutorials are coming soon. So I'll say I'll declare a string first, right? std string, and I'll name it a line. So my string's name is a line, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say while. So I'm going to say while, I'm going to use getLine, okay? std getLine. We once used getLine before. GetLine takes 3 or 2 parameters. In this case, we're going to only pass 2 parameters because we're not going to use a delimiter, okay? So if you're not understanding what I'm talking about, you don't need to worry. By the way, this code you don't really need to cram. There's a greater purpose in understanding or just having somewhat of an idea as to what this code does. There's more to this code than initially meets the eye. So if you don't understand what I'm doing right now, that's okay. I just urge you to follow along just to have a clear understanding of streams, and then you'll see its real purpose later on and why it's important for you to know them, especially if you're reading from a textbook or studying from a textbook, or if you're preparing for whatever type of exam. Now, in the get line, it takes 2 parameters. The first one will be our input stream. So I'm going to pass in stream. Second parameter will be our actual string line. So what is actually happening here is that our get line takes 2 parameters, which is the in stream. Basically the in stream is going to be the file because that's what we gave it. So it's the file. Now it's going to go through each and every single line in the file, and then as it goes through line by line, because this is a while loop, it's going to store that particular line in this variable called line. Okay, now once it does that, we want to now output that line onto the console. So I'm going to say std cout, and I'm going to say the value is, and I'm going to do something like this, and I'll pass in line, and then I'll say std end line, like that. So let's run this and see what it gives us. So it just says successfully opened the file. It doesn't actually do anything. So my initial guess is that something went terribly wrong. Now let's just check to see what actually happened. I'm going to go into my file directory. I think my file got truncated or got formatted. If I open it up, okay, no, nothing has happened. I still have all my elements in here. So I wonder what the problem is. Let's just see. In stream, which is this, .open file.txt. If instream.fail, then this. Else, declare the line, get line, and then display the values. Okay, I'll just try and go and fix this, and then I'll come back. Actually, I didn't need to fix anything. It actually ended up working after running it the second time. I don't know what I did wrong or what I didn't do, but after running this, it actually does work. I didn't need to change anything. So the value of water, the value is water, cooking oil, fish, juice, cool drink, and then it also says successfully opened the file. So I guess we can get rid of the successfully open the file line. I'll get rid of it. So this works. So this outputs the lines to the console. Now, but we don't want to output the lines to the console. What we want to do is that, remember we created 2 files, a file and an output. We want to output all this data over to the output file. Okay, so let's do that. So what we can do here is we need to remember here we declared an out stream. So we're going to use this now. So remember, this in stream, or not even in stream, this in stream is just the name of a variable. The if stream stands for input file stream. This really, its purpose really is to input. Okay, it's to open up files so that we can extract information from them. Really, I may not be saying it properly, but that's the whole agenda here. If stream input file stream is to input, and then the output file stream is so that we can, you know, take the information that we have and give to whatever file or whatever thing that we want to output it to. So now, since we've done with InStream, we've successfully opened the file. Now we want to use the outstream to output the data that we have to that new file, to output that information to that file. I feel like I'm being redundant. Now we're going to do the same thing. In fact, I'm going to copy a lot of this code. I'm going to copy this InStream. Actually, this is not going to be InStream, it's going to be outstream. We're going to open which file? The output file, output.txt, and then I'm going to copy this part as well, this code again. I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to change a few things. If outstream.fail, see out, we fail to open the file, and then we exit. However, if there's nothing wrong, then we can start doing the heavy lifting. So we're gonna write to the actual file. Now we were already writing to the cout right over here, so I'm just gonna take this code and I'm gonna Control X, and then I'm gonna paste it over here, and then I'm just gonna change this line and then write to the file, and then I'm gonna change a few things. So this line, I'm gonna keep it as is, which is declaring a string line, and then this while loop, I'm gonna change this to outstream, right? So no, actually this remains as an InStream. Sorry for that, because we're reading from this InStream, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, no, I am mistaken. Okay, no, let's just do this first. I may have forgotten my syntax. So also okay, if I do std cout, we're writing to the console. However, if I go outstream, right, and then I do this, and then I pass in the line like this, then what happens is that while we go through the InStream line by line and storing the InStream's data into this line, we're gonna output to the output stream that particular line, if that makes sense. So let's just compile this and run and see if it actually works. So it doesn't return anything, right? So we didn't tell the computer to actually return anything, but let's just verify by going to the files. If we go to the files and we actually open up our output file, we end up finding that the data is there. So it actually populated the data, right? So let me just show you something, right? So I could change this line and say, hey, whatever it is that you're going to pass to the output stream, and remember the output stream is connected to this output file, I could change that and say, hey, listen, output this, and then I pass something like this. So really what's gonna be written to the output stream is output this colon and the line, right? So if I run this again, it doesn't do anything. I close that and I go ahead and open my file, which is the output file. I double click on that, look at that. So it now has changed everything, and it has now populated this file with output this. I hope that makes sense. Now, why does it just overwrite everything? That's just how files work in C++. Obviously, you can do some form of error checking, you can do some form of appending, you can write, yeah, you can do a lot of things in order to not get your files written to just as easily as that or some other way. But base level, you can basically reset and write to files just like that, as easily as that. Now, okay, so basically that's it. So that's basically how you read and write to files. However, the reason why we were doing this tutorial in the first place, like I said, they may not test you directly on these concepts. However, I did this video for particularly this part. Now I'm going to open up my conversation with Gemini, right? I'm gonna go over here, and here I asked it the difference between ifstream and istream. So let me just go back to my code editor. Right here, there's IF stream, right, which is input file stream. Remember I said that. And then you have output file stream. If I go here and I can make a declaration, std I stream, and then I could just call it a stream. I could have done something like this, and I could, with this stream variable here from this class iStream, I could have still been able to do whatever it was that I was able to do here with just this line alone, inputs and outputs. However, if you go back to Gemini, it'll tell us that the iStream is the general input stream and the if stream is the input file stream. Now the IF stream is basically a class derived from the iStream. May be confusing, but we'll get to the most important part, trust me. Now the reason why if you want to use files, you use IF streams and OF streams is because they come with methods that are already created for us to use, like for example the dot open, the dot fail, and other methods. So I just want to go all the way down here. So if streams are file specific input operations, and then obviously O streams are also IO streams are obviously also file specific output operations, right? So in streams you can really use it to do anything that you want, but it doesn't have the dot open and the dot close. You might have to write your own functions for that, or write your own operations for that. That's why it's easy to use F streams. Anyway, now if how they work together in code. So you can use in streams. So this is actually the nitty-gritty. In your textbooks, you get code like this a lot, which is iStream, and then you have the reference operator, and then you have the name of the stream, okay? And then you will find this a lot when you read a C++ textbook, and that's the whole point, is for me to explain streams so that you understand what exactly they do. Streams are just there to collect information from the console or from a file, and then take that, and then if you use the whatever operation, you can use that data and do other things with it. So it's especially important in the what's it called, the operator overloading, when we overload this function right here, and also when we overload this function right here. So this is obviously for the input and this is for the output. So it's especially important for that. So it's especially was important for me to actually teach this lesson, even though they don't ask it directly. So that's basically what, so just to explain what's going on here, the whole point of this code, or this piece of code, or this explanation, is we call this function twice. So we're basically trying to well, this AI was basically trying to give an explanation as to why we can use iStream and also ifstream, right? Or how we can use it in the same program. So we're calling this process data function twice. So this is the function. So here we're calling the process data and we're passing in the cin, right? So you can just declare a function like this and pass it an input parameter and say that this is of the type iStream. So a cin is an iStream, and also a file is also an iStream, okay? So you can pass it here, and then you can declare a variable text, and then you can just start reading the inputs from that particular input, or you can pass in a file, and the same thing can happen. You can just pass this file, if the file is open, and then inside this function you can also just read the values from this particular file. So because they are all both iStreams, even though we can say that this is an F stream. So remember, IF stream, input file streams, is derived from the iStream. So you can do this. So just be wary. You'll probably see this piece of code everywhere in your textbooks, and we'll get to that. Okay, so I hope this tutorial was useful. It kind of is a little bit complicated, confusing, so just please leave a like if you did understand or enjoyed it, but if you didn't, you'll definitely understand in future videos. Goodbye.